So let's talk about CSS animations. Yeah, I'm sure you know when talking about animations, you're thinking about moving things, yeah, in a sexy way on the screen. That's an animation. Yeah. When talking about animations, in reality, there are two different technologies we can use depending on our appetite. One are animations, but there is a second one. Does anyone know a different way of animating things without using animations in CSS? Say again? Well, yeah, of course. With JavaScript, you can animate things, yeah? But no, I'm purely talking about CSS. So we've got CSS animations and CSS transitions. Yeah? With both techniques, we can move stuff around the screen. So let's present pros and cons of each of them. So, as usual, I got a very simple app with nothing on it apart from the title. So let me add a box. Div class name, box, hello CSS, yeah? Let's see if it works. Hello, I got my title. So let's add some basic styles. So how do I style a class name, guys? Box. Box. So for instance, background color, yellow, width 100 pixels, height, same thing, 100 pixels. All right. So here we go. We got our sexy yellow box. Yeah, easy. So first of all, transitions. A transition works on one or more CSS properties. So for instance, let me present you the example. I want to change the width of the box whenever I hover. Yeah? So when I move my mouse on top of the yellow box, it should become wider. That's what we are trying to achieve here. So how can we capture the hover event in CSS? Hover, correct? So then we can do with 300 pixels. So now, if I hover the box, see, it works. But obviously, the effect is not very nice. So we would like to progressively extend the size of the box, yeah, for a period of time. So transition works in the following way. We point to a property. Which property is going to change? The width, correct. So we say, hey, whenever the width changes, rather than changing the width immediately, you see, that's immediate action. Rather than completing the action immediately, just do it slowly over a period of time. And how we do that? We type transition. Then the property we want to observe with. Then the type of transition we want to apply. I'll come back to that point in a minute. Let's for now talk about linear. Linear means the transition will work at the same speed from the beginning to the end. And finally, the duration of the transition. How long will it take to complete? For instance, 1 second. That's it. Yeah? So, look, if I hover the box, see? Now it's much better. It takes 1 second to go from the collapsed width, 100 pixels, to the expanded width, 200 pixels.
So why do you put the transition in the dot box, not dot box?
Correct. So let's try to move the transition to box hover. Look, even though it still works, can you see any problem? What's the problem? So the problem is, this code will only run if the box is hover. So when I hover, it applies the transition. But when I blur or when I move the cursor out, pop. Yeah? So generally speaking, and that has nothing to do with transitions and stuff like that. So when you do a pseudo selector like hover, only put in here the properties that are affected by that special circumstance. Yeah? So transition should be declared on the default state, and then we will only set up here the properties that will change whenever we hover the box. So now, expands OK and collapse OK, because the transition is always available. Any questions? So let me show you something. Linear, as I said before, that runs the transition at constant speed. Yeah? That's not very popular. Imagine that you are driving a car, yeah, and there is a traffic light. Yeah, so your driving speed is not constant. Yeah, so first of all, when you start driving, you accelerate, then you go in taxi mode. Yeah, you go at constant speed, sort of, and then when you see a traffic light, you stop progressively. Yeah. So technically speaking, that's what we call easing. That could be a bit complicated to see, but if you pay a lot of attention, you will see that now the box accelerates and then decelerates. Look. Can you see? So generally speaking, this is considered a more natural type of transition because it applies to everything in our environment. If I throw a ball to my dog, it first accelerates and then it decelerates. Yeah? So you can play around with different transition styles. Let me show you a hint. DevTools has a great support for transitions and animations. So if I open DevTools, I click Inspect, then let me show you something. So on my right-hand side, if I select my yellow box, look, you see? So here I can play around, as you already know, with different properties. So for instance, imagine that you want to do some sort of very sexy transition. Look, I can click here, you see that button? And look at how cool this is. I can definitely experiment with different transitions. Yeah, by default, you can do linear, easing, but technically speaking, modern browsers support very complex transitions. Look, I can even do some sort of bouncing effect. You see, well, first of all, I can practice with different styles. Yeah, different techniques. But if I want to have full control, look at how cool this is. And you see the ball on top shows you a preview of how the animation will look like. Yeah? So what happens when I'm happy with that? Look, you see? Now my transition got replaced by something very weird. But if I run it, well, you see? It's pretty cool, right? So obviously, if I refresh the page, will that sexy change persist or not? Not at all. So if that's what you really want, remember to copy it and paste it here. You see? So now, if I refresh the page, I can see the animation is still there, which is pretty cool. Yeah? And one more thing, if you ever do that, please add a comment. I told you yesterday I'm not a big fan of comments, unless you do something a bit exotic. That's a good example. Yeah? I mean, if I have to review that code, I'm personally unable to understand what that cubic visor thingy means. I don't understand that. Maybe if you work with a very senior CSS developer, maybe that would be readable enough. But for me, that's not readable. Because that's not readable, so I will add a comment here saying, oh, sorry, I clicked somewhere. Here you go. So I will say performing a bouncing animation, something like that, to help my colleagues understanding what the hell is going on with these weird values. Any questions? Can we apply a transition over multiple properties? So for instance, can we change the height as well? Yeah, all right, so let's try to do height 300 pixels. What do you think the behavior will be? Expand what, Kaini? So no one can listen to you. I cannot listen to you, and I'm 2 meters away. I don't imagine Alex. Right, but is this going to animate the width, first of all?
But not the transition wise.
Guys, I ask a very simple question. The answer could be yes
Yes.
or no. Yeah? That's a common issue as well. Sometimes you ask obvious questions, maybe not obvious answers, but at least the format of the question is straightforward. Yes or no. Yeah? I know many people struggle to say yes or no. Right? It's fine to argue afterwards, but first of all, will it smoothly expand the width of the box? Yes or no? Yes. All right. Will it smoothly expand the height of the box? Yes or no? No. Why not? Correct. As Alex said, the transition only applies on the width. So let's see what happened. Look. You see? The width is still okay, but the height is very aggressive. It's instant. It's immediate. So how do we solve that? Let me show you two alternatives, and then you tell me which one do you prefer and why. Option A, I copy that and I add a comma separated list of things that I want to apply transitions, something like that. Not sure if I can add breaklines here. Let me try. You see, regardless of whether I can add breaklines or not, I'm passing a comma separated list of transitions. So let's see if it works. Yeah, it works. See? So that's option A. Option B, I keep it only once and I replace with all. Now if I try again, it still works, unsurprisingly. Which one do you prefer and why? All?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to keep the same.
Say that again?
If you want to apply the same to both, then yeah, all will be efficient.
To me, there is no perfect answer. That depends on.
Depending if you're targeting that one, because if you add another attributes on that box too, probably you're not going to want to target all of them, so you need to target just specific items.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the wildcard all selector, and two reasons. First of all, as Florin said, what if I want to change other properties, but I don't want to style them in an animated way? Yeah. So that's the first reason. Reason number two is from a performance point of view, technically speaking, that's worse. Yeah? Because all means the browser will be listening to every single CSS property to see if it changes and then blah, 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 blah. Yeah? Also from a readability point of view, that's the third reason. All doesn't give me any idea about what are we trying to perform. Yeah? All what? However, if I got these two, I need to copy them again. If I got the two properties individually, I can clearly see that in reality, I want to dynamically change the width and the height of the box. Yeah, so now it still works. Any questions? That's what transition is about, pretty much. Yeah. You got some default styles, and whenever something changes, then you can animate them. So transition has a very strong limitation, only reacts to UI changes. You see, I had to hover the box to apply the transition. In other words, I cannot really apply a transition when I refresh the page. You know, sometimes you refresh the page and you want to have some animation running. That doesn't work with transition. Something needs to trigger the transition, yeah? Which is a limitation. I mean, if you want to do something like that, to me, that's absolutely fine, yeah? But, yeah. Also, another advantage of transitions, well, it's simple to perform transitions, and something that developers tend to ignore in job interviews is about browser compatibility, yeah? Today, thankfully, it's not an issue anymore. Unless you are working on a very legacy project. Yeah. So if you work on a legacy project that is likely to support all browsers like Internet Explorer 7, so hopefully you get a fantastic salary to accept that challenge. But if that ever happens, the beautifulness about transitions is that they are transparent. In other words, if the web browser doesn't support these 3 lines, it's equivalent as if they did not exist. And what will these weird customers still using i7 get? They will get that. Is it perfect? No. But it's not breaking my app. At the end of the day, it's still performing the effect that I want. Collapse, expand, collapse, expand. Yeah? So that's good. From a backwards compatibility point of view, transitions are extremely sexy. Any questions?
I have a question about the hover.
Yeah.
Can we apply the transition and the animation when we scroll?
When we scroll,
Page like downwards or upwards?
not with CSS.
Okay.
So with CSS, you cannot capture the scroll event as far as I know. You will need to capture it on JavaScript and then change a class whenever scroll changes, something like that. Yeah, could be a bit more difficult. All right, so once we've seen a bit of transitions, let's check animations. Yeah, so all the limitations of the transitions are sorted by animations. So in other words, animations are very useful. If I want to do that, let me bring the transition back. If I want to run the smooth move of the smooth change of the size of the box when I render the page. So if you don't care about user interaction, yeah, you want to move things just as soon as they are available on the screen. Yeah, that's the situation where animations are so useful. All right, so let me get rid of all the transition logic, and now let's pay attention to the syntax. Animations are a bit harder to grasp. So we need to set up few properties. So one of them is animation name. That's the first one, and the most important one. So what's the name of your animation? Whatever you want. Let me call it expand, for instance. Why this is relevant? Because now, at some point, you need to define the logic associated to this animation. How? Typing keyframes, and now your animation name. That's the syntax in CSS. If you're used to deal with video editing tools like, I think it's Adobe Pinnacle or things like that, or you remember Flash earlier on in time, you will remember that you could set up keyframes. Yeah, keyframes is on the first second of the video, my box is here. After 2 seconds, my box is there. Yeah, these are 2 keyframes. And of course, you can add as many keyframes as you want. So here you can do something like that. From. So what's the original state of your animation? Yeah, this is the original state, and then you can do 2. So for instance, width and height 300 pixels. You see? That's the easiest way to declare an animation, but that's not enough. You see, that doesn't work yet, because we need at least one more property. That's important. We need to specify the duration of the animation. Otherwise, what's the duration? I mean, CSS could apply a default duration of maybe 1 second, but that's not the way CSS works, right? So we need to add another property, animation duration, unsurprisingly, and then we set the duration of the animation. 1 second, for instance. Yeah? All right, so let's see what happened now, and tell me if that's what we expected or not. If I refresh the page, you see, it's, first of all, it works. I don't have to hover the box. Well, can anybody tell me what the problem is? Correct. The animation gets rolled back. It works, but eventually goes back. Yeah. By the way, let me show you another hint, another nice utility coming from Google Chrome. If sometimes you have to deal with complex animations that maybe run very fast and are a bit hard to debug, of course, you can, for testing purposes, increase the duration of the animation to 10 seconds, so then you can slowly, yeah, analyze if it's doing what you wanted or not, and then you see it's slowing down clearly, and after 10 seconds it rolls back. But to me, that's a bit dirty. I don't really like that, because what happens if you then forget to revert your change? Yeah? I'm not a big fan of that. There is a much better way of dealing with this sort of debugging. So look, if you pay attention, there is an animation tab in Google Chrome, and then, oh, you can slow it down to 10%. So if the default animation duration is 1 second, how long will it take to complete at 10% speed? Anybody apart from Alex wants to get a job in this industry, guys? Let me repeat the question with a subtle variation. If the full speed of if at full speed, the animation takes 1 second, how long will it take if it runs at 25%? Anybody apart from Alex?
2.5 seconds.
Say again?
2.5 seconds.
Wrong. 0 point? Wrong. Wrong. Right. Let me rephrase the question. Yeah? Let me rephrase the question. So, if you are driving back home from Bermondsey and you take 1 hour, yeah, to go back home at your speed, whatever the speed is, 1 hour, if the speed is set to 25%, how long will it take you to complete the journey? 4 times longer. That's right. So if by default you need 1 hour, 4 times longer is 4 hours. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Back to school, guys? Yeah? So that's the way it works. So now I can actually slow down the animation. So now it should take 4 seconds. So yes, cool. Not 1.25. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, more or less, yeah? So let me try again. 1, 2, 3, yeah, it's 4 clearly. So, and then you can even, that's pretty cool, right? So Google Chrome can record all the animations, so you can actually play them again, blah, 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 yeah? So that's pretty cool. All right, so, sorry, back to the full speed. So is there any questions so far? No? So we know the problem, right? As someone suggested, the animation is reverted. That's the default behavior of CSS. To me, that feels a bit weird. I think I never found any scenario where that's what I really wanted to do. I mean, I'm sure there are some scenarios out there, but 90% of the time, in being pessimistic, if I run an animation, I don't want to roll it back. I want to leave it as it was at the end of the animation, right? Obviously, we can change that by adding a new property called animation fill mode. That's a bit weird. Forwards. That means once the animation is completed, just leave it. Leave it. Yeah? So now, look at what happened when I refresh the page. Pop. That's it. Much better. Much better. All right, so let me ask you a question. If our UX specialist thinks that the default size of the animation, instead of 100 pixels, yeah, as you can see, so the default width height is 100 pixels, that's not correct. The default width and height should be 150 pixels. So how many lines of code do we have to change? 1, 2, 4. Why 4?
First two, the size of the box, firstly, yeah, and then, yeah, the starting point of the animation.
That's correct, Octavian. You're absolutely right. So if we want to change the default width and height, we have to change it 4 times. That's not really efficient. Yeah. So is there a way to, for instance, can we just get rid of that? Will look much nicer, right? Like, hey, my animation starts here and then ends here. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it works. Huh, it works. It works. So do you agree with me? Now the code looks a bit nicer, because if I want to change the width and the height, It's only here. Yeah, I know how to change it multiple times, creating a lot of confusion. So even if you agree with me, let me tell you I'm not a big fan of that. And let me present you a problem. Imagine that, once again, UX decides to delay the animation because it happens very quickly, yeah? You should refresh the page, it's like too much things moving on the screen. So what UX department wants is to delay the animation maybe a couple of seconds. So for a couple of seconds, the box should be idle, should be on its collapse size, 100 by 100, and after 2 very long seconds, we will blow it, yeah? We will expand it. All right, so how do we do that? Well, we can add a new property called animation delay, 2 seconds. Will it work as expected? Let's have a look. I'm refreshing. What was that?
Just said it.
Yeah, because we don't have the width and height of the box. So
That's correct, Octavian. The problem is, animations don't trigger until they start running. If we delay the animation 2 seconds,
we'll start after 2 seconds.
that's right, yeah? I know many people follow that style. I'm not a big fan of that, yeah? So if you're in a job interview, feel free to not complain, but at least to prove that you know the side effects, the potential side effects of dealing with that sort of from to. So how do we fix the problem? Easy. I never write a from tag. That's it. That's it. Yeah? So if I run it again, look, 1, 2, go for it. Much better. 1, 2. Yeah? Any questions?
But when you need the from, when it makes sense to have the from.
Technically speaking, you can, as I explained, that depends on your appetite. I mean, if you don't have any delay, as we saw before, that's fine to move that bit to the from. For readability purposes, I think it looks good, right? From to, I think it's good for readability purposes. But it's a bit risky, because as soon as you add an animation delay, your UI will break. So that's not a good thing. Also, when talking about from and to, CSS is powerful enough to be able to add multiple keyframes. From and to is just 2 keyframes, right? The first and the last. But in reality, guys, we can do that. Look at how cool this is. You see? So, can anybody tell me what will be the size of the box as soon as I refresh the page? The width? 100 or 300, and why? So you think that as soon as I refresh the page, the width of the box will be 300? Why?
default value.
Oh no, it's going to be 100.
Because the animation will start after 2 seconds.
Correct. As soon as I refresh the page, the width of the box will be 100. After 2 seconds, then we'll start changing things. So can anybody tell me at what point since I refresh the page, the width of the box will be 300? 2.2. That's right. Why 2.2? First of all, nothing will happen on the first 2 seconds. Nothing. Then we will start animating the box for 1 second. Yeah? So at 20% of that second, so what's 20% of 1 second? 2/10. Yeah? So 2/10 of a second plus the 2 seconds before the animation started to run, then we'll change the width to 300. Yeah? So it will take 2/10 of a second to move the width from 100 to 300. So boom, it will be super fast. And then, from 0.2 of a second to 1 second, so that means 0.8 of a second, it will move the width of the box from 300 to 500. In other words, the box will quickly expand and then it will keep expanding, but slower. Yeah? Let's see if that's right or not. Oh, that's a big box, guys. So, yeah, let me refresh. Nothing. Boom, boom. You see? You see the breakpoint, how it stops? So yeah, that's pretty much the way keyframes work. So obviously, animations are way more powerful than transitions. You can do a lot of things in here, right? But they are a bit more complex to read, more complex to understand, and especially they are not backwards compatible. Do you remember the example I gave you before about i7? With i7, even though the effect, the smooth effect doesn't work, the result does work, yeah? Collapse, expanded. But now, if we are dealing with a browser that doesn't support these things, then it will never expand. Yeah? So we will never be able to reach the eventual state of the animation. Once again, to me, today, thankfully, that's not an issue anymore because all the browsers support animation. But historically speaking, that was one of the main issues when we start dealing with these sort of sexy things.
If you wanted to collapse to the original size, do you need to add that size at 100%, or is there any?
Yeah, if you want to roll it back, so for instance, you can do at 50% 300, and then at 100%, you can bring it back. Yeah.
It's the only way to bring it back.
I'm afraid it's the only way. Yeah. So, what is it? Here you go. Yeah. So if I refresh the page, it takes 2 seconds. Sorry, 1 and then 2. Yeah. Not sure, Camila, to be honest. If playing with animation fill mode, not sure if you will be able to. Not an expert on that property. But maybe with animation fill mode, there is a way to tell, hey, once the animation is completed, then roll it back, but following the same speed. I don't know, something that you may want to research. Any questions?
Yeah. Can I use it on a hover?
On hover?
Yeah.
Why do if you if you want to use it on hover, what's the advantage of using an animation instead of a transition? Well, to have more control maybe with the keyframes, 10%, 20%. But yeah, you're right. I mean, definitely. We can do box hover. So let me get rid of the delay. That should work, definitely. So look, I'm moving all the stuff to the hover. Yeah. So in theory, now nothing will happen for sure when I refresh the page, but if I hover, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, it's cool. It's cool because once again, with animation, you can have a lot of control on what you want to build. Yeah.
With animation, how with the transition, you have the ability to change like the ease, like the animation speed, I guess. Can you do that with?
The speed.
Well, not just the speed. But you know how in transition you have the graph picker where you can.
Oh, I see, the easing. Yes, that's the same thing. Yes, there is definitely a way to change the easing. It's animation, one of these. Let me go to Google, guys. I don't remember that one. So Animation CSS is animation timing. That's the name of the property according to our friend W3 Schools. That's it. Yeah. Animation timing function. So if you use it, animation timing function, and then you see, you can do easing, you can do linear, you can do whatever you want, right? And I believe that once you've selected your favorite, like easing, then our former friend Google Chrome should be able to deal with that in a very sexy way. So let me have a look. Yeah. So now if I actually let me get rid of the hover just for simplicity reasons. Let me just move the animation back to the onload state. And now let's try again. Should it work? Yeah, it works. So now, look, that's correct, Alex. Right? It's the same thing. It's cool, right? So now I can once again declare a very sexy animation. And then if I, but the thing is, now I have to refresh the page, right? So if I refresh the page, I will lose my changes. So then remember to copy them back to your VS Code. And now when you refresh, yeah, it's a bit hard to see, but if I slow it down, you see, it's shrinking, then expanding, and then it shrinks a bit, and then that's a bit weird, but now, and it will expand a bit. Yeah. So yeah, definitely, you have the same control when talking about the timing function. That's the right way to refer to the easing. Yeah. Let me show you one more thing. Not sure if we got time. Yeah, we got 10 minutes. So you will start working on your portfolio. Yeah. It goes without saying that even though business people, they most of the time don't have an idea about how the technical things work, which is sometimes a problem because sometimes we speak different languages. Yeah, for sure they like things moving. Yeah? Sometimes business people like kids. They like confetti on the platform. They love confetti. So you will start working solely on your portfolio. Yeah. I won't ask you to add like 24 colors and weird things, yeah, to get a bit of epilepsy. No, it's not the thing. But having some tiny, small animations may help to get the attention from the industry. Like, that wow effect. So now the question is, are you going to build all your animations by yourself, blah, blah, blah? If you are creative enough, of course, you are more than welcome to spend some decent hours playing with that. But when talking about, doing simple things like fading, sliding, that sort of effects that you already know, let me present you a very nice tool, which is called Animate.css. So, Animate.css is literally a very simplistic CSS library to, add subtle and not that subtle animations to your code and to your text, essentially, and to your boxes. Yeah, some of them are pretty special, as you can see. Yeah, so definitely I recommend you to play a bit with it, to install it as part of your portfolio once you start working with it. So let's try to install it. Let's do it live and see if it works. So let me change the exercise a bit. So essentially, I'm going to add a title, or not even a title. I will just copy paste some stuff from the library just to see if it works. So we need to do a couple of things. First of all, we have to install the library. Yeah? Do you remember when we talked about create React app? Yeah, do you remember that? Not create app. The routing, we installed the router. So that's pretty much the same thing. It's a very popular library. I like it. I will give it a start. Yeah? So how do we install it? Well, let's just follow the instructions. npm install blah 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 blah. Yeah? You don't have to do that anymore. That's just happening automatically. This is to save the package into your package.json. But anyway, it doesn't hurt. So let's just copy it. And now let's go to a terminal. Do you remember we need to install it? Do you remember what I told you about the running the server while you install something? No? Nobody? Stop it first. Control C. Yeah? Kill the server. And now install your sexy library. And then while it gets installed, so we need to do a couple of things. To make the library available on your code, you need to import it. And the way to import it, that didn't work. Access permission denied. All right, let me try with sudo. Yeah, let's see if it works. I mean, if it doesn't work, that's fine. Sometimes my system is a bit crazy with the system, with the permissions. All right, let me try again, and I'll show you. So to use it, you need to import it. And how you import it? You have to type import, and then I think it's, animate.css. That's the ID of the library. That's it. Yeah? You don't need any variable, because you are not going, you import a variable when you want to play with it in JavaScript, but this is just CSS. So you don't need any variable. So once you've done that, let's follow the instructions. Usage, blah, blah, blah. We don't need that, blah, 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 blah. Here, you get all the available animation. So essentially, the way you work with it is by simply adding some classes to your HTML. Okay? It's very simple, very simple. So let me copy that title. Yeah, looks it work, fantastic. So let me copy that title here, H1, whatever, yeah? I don't even need the CSS anymore. Something like that. So back to, okay, let's start the server again, right? npm start. So if that's right, if I understood the instructions correctly, we need to add a few classes. So the first one, animated, means this element is compatible with the library. That's the first thing. Yeah, you always need the first one. Then infinite means, will the animation run once, or will it be bouncing, will it be running forever? Okay? You have that option. So then, let's see if it works. It works. Only once. No, it works. Look. That's cool, right? So white bounces forever because you got the infinite tag. Look, you got bounce and you got delay. You remember the delay thingy? So this is the reason why I like that is because it's very declarative. Just by setting a bunch of CSS classes, you can customize the behavior of your element. And of course, as I said before, you can spend few hours dealing with all the supported things here. So for instance, heartbeat. So what is heartbeat doing? I don't know. Let's try it, right? Heartbeat. Oh. Yeah, it's a heartbeat, right? It's pretty honest. And then, yeah, some of them are pretty crazy. So Jack in the Box. So we're using Jack in the Box and Codery, by the way. So Jack in the Box, you will see in a second. Oh, no, it wasn't Jack in the Box. Something similar. Anyway, I don't remember it. Maybe Hing or Ying, how you pronounce that. Yeah, once again, I mean, just make sure you waste a few hours just playing with the different styles, yeah? So as part of Codery, we use some of them. Maybe you've noticed, so for instance, where we use them. When we create challenges, maybe if there is nothing, obviously now there are some challenges, but maybe if we change the filter, so for instance, challenges created today, maybe there is none. Oh, you see the button? Yeah. So this is one of these animation. Which one? I don't know, but if you want to figure out, I click inspect. If you want some sort of inspiration, so look, button, animated, Jack in the Box. Yeah, so that's one of these. We are also using a similar one on the bootcamp, on the commercial part of the site. Look to the book your place icon. So when you refresh the page, you will see the book your place. Yeah. Obviously the frame rate is not good because I'm streaming and I'm blah blah blah. Yeah, but it will look hopefully at 60 frames per second in your devices. Use what?
What did you use for confetti?
Where? No. The confetti is completely different. You cannot build the confetti with CSS.
What did you use for confetti?
It's a JavaScript library based on Canvas. I can show you. I don't remember JavaScript confetti. There are few. I use one of them. Confetti JS or Canvas Confetti, one of these, right? So this is just a JavaScript library. So the process is the same. You install it, and then you need to check the instructions. Is there any demo, anything? Yeah. So not sure if this is one. Maybe this one. I don't know. Yeah. Cool. Any questions, guys?
Is there any way, how the animations you can delay by the load of the page? Is there any way to make animations trigger by you leaving the page?
You leaving the page. So you want to run animation when you leave the page.
Yeah.
So once again, this type of scenarios, same as I think Andrea or Kevin exposed before, you need JavaScript. So with JavaScript, you can listen to events. And an event could be scrolling, that's an event. An event could be leaving the page. An event could be going offline. Maybe you've noticed, maybe not, if you're on the Codery platform and you switch off the cable of the internet, well, that doesn't make sense in 2020. No one is connected to any cable. If you disconnect the Wi-Fi, the code platform will show you a message like, hey, you're offline. And when you reconnect, you get a green message, hey, you are online again. So this type of events, you can subscribe to JavaScript events, and whenever JavaScript detects that that event is happening, you'll get an alert. And what do you do with the alert? That's up to you. You can, for instance, add a new CSS to your DOM. So whenever you add the CSS user leaving the page, then you can animate something. Obviously, if you are leaving the page, well, I don't know what you want to do, but the page will be removed by whatever you are going next, right? But yes, technically speaking, you can detect if the user wants to leave the page. Yeah, you know, when you are watching some content illegally on the internet, like Game of Thrones, something like that, you get lots of pop-ups on the screen about buying and enlarging your penis and things like that. Yeah, so this type of things detect when you try to leave the page to show you, are you sure? Things like that. Yeah. All right, anything else, guys? No? Cool, that was it. Thank you for watching.